I think first and foremost for us, coming from the resident missions, we are, isolated from HQ where I guess where it's all happening. And coming here, has been very valuable in that we put faces to the names, but we also, I think just knowing who to contact, and I think that was one of the key points that came through in some of the discussions over the last 3 days, is that it's very hard sometimes to know who actually is the right person to get in contact with if we need assistance in a particular area. So that's been a very valuable thing in this gathering. Secondly, I think sharing of experiences and best practices. You bring a group of people from different resident missions, put them together with sector specialists that are based in HQ, and you've got like a plethora of experiences that sharing it, and just putting it in context of where you come from and the work that you do is quite very, very good. And lastly, I think it serves to give us a common sense of understanding of the issue. Because, for some of us, maybe we had our own definitions of the word governance. We certainly have the ADB definition. But, when we go out there, are we talking the same language? Are we talking from the same page? So I think just the sharing that we've had in the last 3 days has given me the opportunity to have that. In terms of then trying to mainstream governance and public management into sector operations, I think the question that I think myself and some others have asked, is that the most suitable entry point for mainstreaming, through sector level operations, or do we need, as I think from coming from the Pacific, we're saying that because the capacity levels are such that you really need to go down to the basics. Is that where we need to start from? That we get the basics right, we get a minimum level of standards, and then the mainstreaming kind of fall into place. And I think again, having a very good sort of like good understanding and a common understanding of what the words governance and what public management means, and how that applies into the context of where we work. So I would think that it differs, and I would think that we need to also not have a one-size-fits-all answer, but look at it on a case-by-case basis. We work a lot in SOE reforms in the Pacific. We do a lot of, and there's always a debate. We use the source of assistance that ADB has is through what we've got a RETA, the Private Sector Development Initiative. So it's seen as a private sector operation, activity. But if you look at a lot of the, from the government side, it's actually a public sector, activity. So, therein lies, the first sort of like, is it private sector or public sector? So, that's, I guess, in that way, that's where the government ownership comes from, the fact that because they're SOEs and they're by right, they're owned by government, they have a sort of like an embedded, interest in ensuring that. And there's been so much work in the corporate governance aspect of SOE reforms. There's been a lot of trainings of potential directors. The governments have done reforms in terms of moving out government officials from boards and putting in place private sector board members. So there has been a lot of activities from that side. And then the government ownership is kind of like automatic because of its ownership of these SOEs. I think generally from the Pacific, we mentioned during some of our comments and some of our interventions that we've got a very robust development partners group that work together. But I think the key for us is that it's government led, And basically it's the government that that sort of like gives us guidance and directs how we go about this, and I think through that engagement we've been able to get a lot of government buy-in into a number of different things. And I think, I think the suggestion is that we also then use that mechanism which is existing and has proven to be successful. We use that to also then engage the government in governance and public management. But a lot of our economic working groups, these are the key aspects of the discussion. Things like BFM, fiscal policy, the promotion of structural reforms. Those are the core of governance. So it's already happening, and I think if we continue on it, then I think we will continue to also have government ownership from that aspect.